Gracefully Growing family. It's Dr. Cami here, and welcome back to another episode where we get real about the ups and downs and in between of teen life. Today, we're tackling a situation I know you faced at least once, maybe even this week, and that is conflict or miscommunication with a teacher. Yeah, I said it. We love our teachers, but sometimes it feels like they're on one planet and we are on another. So maybe you turned in your homework, but it gets marked as missing. As a former teacher, I know exactly what I am talking about. Or maybe you asked a question and your teacher gave you that look that said, "Really? Seriously?" Or maybe they thought you had an attitude when you were just tired, hungry, or running on one granola bar from breakfast. Well, welcome to the Gracefully Growing podcast, where we provide you with real talk, real growth, and real life tools to help you thrive in life and in school. I am Dr. Kemi, educator, author, speaker, gratitude advocate, and mom to the most amazing 13-year-old sunshine you will ever meet. And each week, I get excited that you have chosen to continue on this journey with me as we continue to explore the 5 key principles that would lead you to a fulfilling life. And these 5 key principles are gratitude, reflection, affirmations, connections, as well as empathy. So if this is your first time here, let me catch you up real quick. Each week, I dive deep into how you live with intention and thrive in this wild journey called life, using the 5 key principles that I just mentioned. And also, I need your help. Please help me get to 1,000 subscribers by clicking that subscribe button right now. I know you want to. And be sure to like, comment, and share with your friends. So, you ready? Okay. I want you to go ahead and grab your journal, or I want you to go ahead and grab your notebook. And if you do not have a notebook to take notes, I want you to open your phone and open the notes app on your phone so you can take some notes. And if you're looking for a really great journal to support you on this journey, I have written the Affirmation Gratitude Journal, which is available on Amazon. And I will be sure to post a link to it in the show notes. Let us talk about conflict or miscommunication with your teachers. How do you handle these moments where you have a conflict with your teacher or an adult without you blowing up, shutting down, or plotting a great escape from their class, or you end up skipping class and then eventually fail the class because you stopped going to class? That's where our grace framework comes in. Here's the deal. And here's what I want you to remember at all times. Your teachers are human. They have good days and they have bad days, just like you. They get tired, they get stressed, and sometimes they misinterpret things. So maybe you were just stretching in class, but from their angle, it looked like you were doing something else. Maybe you thought the assignment was due on Friday, but your teacher swore and they swear that they told you that it was due on Wednesday. Boom. Instant miscommunication. Here's the tricky part about this. When conflict or miscommunication happen and we don't deal with it right then and there, it starts to grow and grow in our minds. Suddenly, A small misunderstanding that could have been handled turns into something big, and it just feels like it's a full-blown feud. And you might start avoiding that class. Like I mentioned earlier, you might start pretending not to care about the class, or you might even convince yourself that your teacher is out to get you, when in reality, it could just be crossed wires. I have been there. I know. I've been there. But let's be honest, carrying around that type of stress is exhausting. School is already full of its own type of drama, its own type of pressure. There are the grades, the quizzes, the tests, the friendship, the sports, the part-time job for those of you who have them. So adding an unresolved teacher conflict on top of that, I don't know that anyone wants to do that. Let me tell you something. Learning how to communicate clearly, calmly, will repair the relationship, and it will save you a lot of unnecessary drama. Can you just imagine walking into your class and not feeling that knot in your stomach? Because today you're thinking, I don't even know what's going to happen between Miss Smith and I today, right? But when you are able to resolve conflict between you and your teacher, or you're able to communicate clearly and calmly with your teacher, you're able to enter class without feeling the angst and the stress, because now you and your teacher are back on the same page. That is priceless. And the thing is, you see these skills, clear communication, remaining calm, and repairing relationships, they don't just help in school. These are life skills. You are going to use them with future bosses when there's a mix up at work. You'll use them with roommates when someone maybe forgets to do the dishes for the 10th time. You will even use them in friendships or relationships when someone misreads the tone in your text message. This is why oftentimes I encourage people not to send a text, but to call and have a conversation. There is a lot that can get missing in the translation in a text. Because remember this, everybody hears and reads things through the frame and the lens of their understanding and their situation. I want you to always remember that. And once you remember that, it will help you not to take things personally. But I digress. Here's the bottom line. Conflict isn't something to fear. It's actually an opportunity for growth. When you learn how to deal with it with grace, you become the kind of person who doesn't run from problems. You face them with confidence, respect, and maturity. And that, my dears, is an absolute game changer. I know what you're thinking. Gratitude. I always know what you're thinking each week. Grateful. You want me to be grateful. You want me to be grateful for a teacher who just embarrassed me in front of the whole class. Hear me out. Remember what I told you last week and the week before that and the week before that. Gratitude is in this case, it's not about you saying thank you for ruining my day. Gratitude is about you flipping the script. It's about you remembering the bigger picture. Most teachers really want you to succeed. I want you to always have that at the back of your mind. Even when they mess up, they're usually not trying to ruin your life. At least I know that as a teacher, I wasn't trying to ruin anybody's life. So instead of saying, oh, Miss Smith hates me, look at the kind of comments she put on my paper. I want you to try shifting that to, I am grateful that Miss Smith is providing me with feedback, even if the feedback came out wrong. I am grateful I can learn how to speak up for myself. What this mindset does for you is it keeps you calm enough to handle the situation. So let's say you turned in your project to Miss Smith. We'll call the teacher Miss Smith. And Miss Smith marks your project late, even though you turned it in on time. So instead of you storming up and going to Miss Smith and blowing up in Miss Smith's face and questioning Miss Smith about how she never checks her email and you turned in your stuff on time, you could take a deep breath and think, maybe she didn't see my email. And if I go talk to her, we can resolve this and I can show her proof, timestamp that I submitted my work on time. And then I want you to think about for yourself and express gratitude to yourself and be proud of yourself for completing your project on time and turning it in on time. So when you flip the script and you're looking at the bigger picture like that, it allows you to be able to approach the conversation with confidence instead of frustration. We got it? Cool. Let's talk about reflection. Reflection is always your time and your moment to pause and replay the scene in your head. So instead of judging, you're analyzing the scene. What actually happened? Did I mishear the instruction? Did my tone come out sharper than I meant it? Did I sound like I was rolling my eyes, even though I know I wasn't? Yes, that resting, bored face should honestly be recognized as a condition. I know some people call it the BF. We don't say those types of words on this podcast. Or maybe your teacher truly did misunderstand something. Either way, reflection is where you stop reacting on pure emotion and start responding with clarity. If you have not seen my podcast episode about reaction versus responding, I'm going to encourage you to watch that episode. Let's be honest. When you are upset, your brain sometimes goes straight into drama mode. Suddenly, it's not just Miss Smith marked my assignment late, it's Miss Smith hates me and wants me to fail this class. That's when you get to pause and check yourself. You know, I would say check yourself before you wreck yourself. You want to pause and check yourself. So instead of saying and thinking to yourself, that is so unfair, ask yourself, what was said? What was meant? Could there be another side to the story? Reflection doesn't mean you're excusing Miss Smith's behavior and how Miss Smith treated you or how you perceive that Miss Smith treated you. It just helps you to see the full picture before you react. You're basically being your own detective. So let's talk about, and this has happened to me as a teacher. So I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say you get called out in class for talking by your teacher. But really, what you were doing was maybe telling somebody to stop talking to you, or you were trying to get something from another student that you really needed for class. Reflection helps you to zoom out and think, from my teacher's point of view, it probably looked like I was chatting it up with another student. That understanding right there helps you to approach that conversation calmly instead of being defensive. Reflection is basically your emotional maturity in action. You are not jumping to conclusions. You are giving yourself space to understand what really happened. It's like hitting the pause button before sending that angry text. Because here's the thing, once you send an angry text, you cannot unsend it. So before you march up to your teacher or you vent to your friends, take that moment to reflect and ask yourself, what's the story I'm telling myself and what might really be true? That small step can turn what could have been an argument into an honest, respectful conversation. And trust me, that is what growth and our entire grace framework is all about. Affirmations. Affirm yourself before you speak up. Seriously, this is where you become your own hype squad. Before you even think about talking to your teacher, take a second to remind yourself who you are and what you stand for. The thing about conflict is this: it can and it will make you second guess yourself, especially when it's an adult or someone in authority. You might start spinning with thoughts like, what if they think I'm being disrespectful? What if they don't believe me? What if this makes it worse? That's exactly when you pause and flip the script. Instead of letting that fear run the show, speak power into yourself with affirmations. So you might want to try these. I deserve to be heard respectfully. I can stay calm and explain my side clearly. One misunderstanding does not define my relationship with this teacher. I am capable of handling tough conversations with maturity and grace. I am not here to argue. I am here to find understanding. And many more like those. I want you to think of affirmations as your internal cheerleaders before the big game. You wouldn't want to step on a basketball court or stage without warming up, would you? Same rule applies here. These words are your warm up. They help you to reset your energy from nervous to confident. This simple mindset shift can completely change the outcome of the conversation. When you walk in believing that your voice matters, it shows in your tone, your posture, and even in your facial expressions. And remember this, being confident does not mean that you're being rude or challenging authority. It means that you respect yourself enough to speak up and respect the other person enough to do it calmly and respectfully. That, my dears, is maturity in action. And trust me, your teacher will notice the difference. When my son was much younger, I would tell him if there was something that he submitted and the teacher marked it wrong, I always would tell him to send an email and to copy me on that email. So that way there's a documentation that he has notified the teacher and that I am aware of it. So you may want to try that as well. Before you go into that conversation with your teacher, hype yourself up and stand tall. Take a deep breath and maybe even play your favorite song in your head. Remember, you are not going in to win, you are going in to be understood. When you believe in yourself first, it is so much easier for others to listen. Let's talk about connections. Connections is where you actually talk it out. Because remember, the goal is not for you to win, but to clear things up and to rebuild the connection. So therefore, your timing matters. So maybe don't bring it up in front of the whole class, or when your teacher looks like they might be upset about something. Maybe they spilled coffee on themselves, or they received an email and you could tell on their face that this is not a good time. Instead, I want you to ask, can I talk to you after class for a minute? Ask your permission. Can I come see you later on at the end of the day? Especially if you're not a bus rider. If you're a car rider, you may want to notify your parents that you need to talk to your teacher about something, right? When you do have the conversation with your teacher, I want you to use calm, clear words. You want to start with I statements. Like, I felt confused because I thought I turned my paper in on time, instead of you didn't check your email and that's why you thought my paper was turned in late. Do you see the difference? I want you to be open. Maybe say something like, maybe remember, I statement, I misunderstood, but can we look at it together? Show respect, because respect usually gets respect back. That's why it's important that your tone is calm and your words are clear. So let's say, for example, you turned in your paper and your teacher maybe thought that you plagiarized your paper. Instead of you yelling at the teacher and saying, I didn't cheat, you can say something like, well, I understand why it looks that way. I actually did my research here and I can show you my notes if that helps. You have to come with your receipts. And what this does is it shows that you are serious about your work and you're also respectful as opposed to being defensive. Let's talk about empathy. Empathy is the secret sauce, because here's what I want you to think about. There is one of you, right? However, your teacher has 150 or more of you. I remember that when I was a teacher, my student count was 180 students. So multiply that workload. That is 180 papers to grade. That is 180 students asking me, is this going to be graded? Is this for a grade? Is this going to be on a test? Y'all, that is stressful. That is stressful. However, when you show empathy, even with something as simple as saying to your teacher, I know you have a lot on your plate, but I just want to clear this up. It softens the whole vibe, I promise you, because it shows that you're not just another frustrated student, you are someone who actually gets it. And guess what? That empathy makes your teacher more likely to want to hear you out and even go the extra mile for you in the future. So, empathy is not only about showing yourself grace, it's about extending that kindness to someone else. And in this case, extending that kindness to your teachers. Because I promise you, they're dealing with a lot, not just you. Imagine that they're dealing with you as students, all of y'all, and then they're dealing with some of y'all's parents, and then they're dealing with administrators. Oh, but let's talk about what they're dealing with in their personal lives. That's not even in the picture yet. So I encourage you, and I'm asking you to teach your teachers with empathy. It goes a long way, I promise you. Let's break all of this down into real life steps you can actually use the next time conflict with a teacher pops up. I want you to think of this like your survival guide for awkward school moments. I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Number one, the number one thing you want to do is stay calm. Don't go in hot. If you try to talk while you're still upset, chances are it's not going to go the way you want. So take a deep breath, count to 10, or even walk around for a minute before saying anything. Think of it like putting your brain on airplane mode, just long enough for it to reset. Number two, clarify what actually happened. Sometimes conflict is literally just crossed signals. So before assuming the worst, ask questions. Can you explain the directions again? Can I show you how I understood the assignment? Could there have been a mistake in the grade book? Let's say, for example, you walked in right on the bell, but then she marks you tardy. So instead of you saying, how come you didn't see me? I walked in on the bell. That is that frustration coming through. You could just ask your teacher, Miss Smith, maybe the system didn't update when you put it in. Could you check again for me, please? It's that simple. Number three, timing is key. Choose the right moment. You don't want to hash out stuff in the middle of class when everybody's watching. Why you want to do that? Because remember, you're trying to save face, and your teacher's trying to save face too. So that's when emotions flare and nothing gets resolved. So always ask to speak after class, during lunch, or like I told you, I tell my son to do, send an email asking for a time to talk, or send an email with your receipts. That works too. Number four, use I statements instead of blaming. This one is big. Instead of you yelling at your teacher and saying, you never listen. I actually had a student yell at me, you never listen. That puts your teacher on the defense. Try flipping it. Saying something like, I felt confused because I thought the directions meant whatever the direction meant. Or you could say, I was worried when I saw my grade because I thought I submitted on time. You see the difference? Number five, show respect, even if you don't feel respected. And I know this one is a little bit hard because I always hear to get respect, you got to give respect. I get it. But here's what I want you to know. Respect is like a mirror. The calmer and more respectful you are, the more likely that your teacher is going to reflect it back to you. Now, it doesn't mean that you got to agree with them, but it does mean you stay professional. Yes, even as a teenager, you can be professional. Number six, sprinkle in some empathy. A little bit of empathy goes a long way, and it bears repeating. A simple Miss Smith, I know you have a lot of students to keep track of. Makes your teacher feel seen. And people who feel seen are usually more open to listening. Number seven, follow up if needed. Sometimes one conversation won't fix everything. Even if it's still not resolved, don't be afraid to circle back. Politely, of course. Think of it like sending a reminder text or make it teacher appropriate. You can send an email. Hey, Miss Smith, I just wanted to follow up on my project grade. Did you get a chance to review it yet? Here is the bottom line. Miscommunication happens, but you don't have to let it ruin your whole semester, your entire school year. Let's recap right quick the 7 tips. Number one, stay calm first. Number two, clarify. Number three, ask for a private chat. Number 4, use I statements. Number 5, show respect. Number 6, show empathy. And finally, number 7, follow up if need be. Here's your challenge for the week. Challenge time. Think of one situation where you felt misunderstood by a teacher. I want you to write down how you could approach it using the GRACE framework. That is gratitude, reflection, affirmations, connection, as well as empathy. Even if you don't end up having that talk with your teacher, practicing this mindset will help you stay calm the next time conflict pops up. Remember, these are skills that you're going to need forever. So, how to resolve conflict? You don't just need it for your teachers. Even though we're talking about it as it relates to school and your teachers, you're going to need it with your college professors. You're going to need it with your bosses at work. You're going to need this in relationships and situationships and all of the ships that are out there, right? And if you do use grace with a teacher, I'd love to hear how it went. Drop me a direct message, drop me a comment, or share your story because your experience might help another student too. Remember, conflict does not have to mean the end of a relationship. With grace, it can actually be the start of a stronger one. I want to thank you for hanging out with me today on the Gracefully Growing podcast. If this episode helped you, share it with a friend who's dealing with teacher drama right now. We all know at least one. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. I drop new episodes every Monday. Until next time, keep living and growing with grace. And remember, you got this. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Gracefully Growing. Thank you so much for tuning in and growing with me. Remember, living with grace means showing gratitude, taking the time for reflection, speaking powerful affirmations, building strong connections, and practicing daily empathy with yourself and others. If today's episode gave you something to think about, inspired you, or made you smile, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also download today's free resource in the show notes and join our Gracefully Growing community on social media for more tools, encouragement, and real talk. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, keep growing, and most of all, keep living with grace. I am Dr. Kemi. See you next week.